Hey everyone, this is Lomi, and back in October, I guess, I took a trip to visit family, and while I was helping my dad clean out my late uncle's race car trailer, we found this old oak cabinet. It was pretty dirty, splattered with oil, and kind of musty after years in storage, so Dad was going to throw it away, but I had a different idea. I ended up taking it home with me and cleaned it up, removing all the old dirt and oil, with the plan to turn this into a wardrobe for my 1/3 scale dolls. The first step to converting it into a wardrobe was to remove the shelves inside. The front is solid oak and the sides have 1/4-inch oak panels, but the interior is medium density fiberboard. The shelves were stapled in from the sides under the exterior oak panels, so the only way to get the shelves out was to cut them, with a little help from an assistant who is very determined to escape her designated play area. I used an oscillating cutter to slice through the shelves all the way to the back, then used a hammer to push the shelves upwards since there's a support bar beneath the back of each shelf. When the shelves come out, they take the staples with them, which leaves some holes in the sides, but I'll be covering the inside with contact paper eventually. Tozy refuses to stay pinned up while I do this, of course. She's 4 months old now, and it's been 8 weeks of pure chaos. She's pretty much the main reason I can't get anything done anymore, and I kind of wonder what my family was thinking when I'm like, hey, my doctor says I need extra rest, and their response is, husky puppy. Anyway, trying to deal with it, but her insistence on being involved in everything is a little frustrating. After the shelves are out, I prepared the pieces I'd need to add to the cabinet. These are the only things I purchased for this project. The oak dowel rod will be the bar for clothing to hang on, and the decorative trim will hide the edge of the scrap plywood I'll be using for the top. I cut both pieces by hand so they'd be ready, and my husband cut the scrap plywood for me while I ran interference with the puppy. Since the plywood came from something else, it's got some scuffs and screw holes that I patched up with lightweight wood filler while I decide how I want to attach the top. I considered glue at first, but I want it to be really secure, so I decided to use screws. At this point, I also removed the backing board from the cabinet, as I determined it had gotten wet at some point, and that was the source of the musty smell. I cleaned the whole cabinet with vinegar to be sure there was no mildew or mold, but once the backing board was gone, so was the smell, so the rest of the cabinet was just fine. I put the plywood on top, started to drill holes for the screws, put away the dog again, then finished the process of drilling pilot holes and screwing down the top. The cordless drill wasn't strong enough to get the screws all the way in, so I switched to the regular drill to finish them off, then patch up the screw holes with more wood filler. While the wood filler dries, it's a good time to add the trim to the front to hide the edge of the plywood, so I add some wood glue to the trim and clamp it on to dry. This gets to sit overnight, and I move on to figuring out a bracket to hold the bar inside the wardrobe. I used Tinkercad to create a little bracket I could 3D print, and you can see I fidget with the design a little bit as I go. At first I felt it was a little too shallow, so I made it a bit taller and moved the screw holes up to the top edge. This was perfect, so I 3D printed 2 of the brackets and used a mini level to mark placement for them inside. I drilled pilot holes for the MDF interior and then screwed 1 bracket to either side. This holds the clothing rod perfectly, and the hardwood dowel should be plenty strong to support doll clothes. The next morning, the wood putty and glue were all dry, so I sanded the putty smooth. My favorite part of any project. Not. Then it was out to the garage to add some color. I used some leftover Polyshades tinted polyurethane from a previous project. I picked this specifically because it can be used over existing polyurethanes. So while I put 2 coats of it on the unstained top and trim to make them nice and dark, I wiped a lighter coat over the very orange finish of the rest of the cabinet to age it a little and add some more appealing red tones. Lastly, I needed to add something to replace the old backing board I removed. I decided to go with foam board because I can easily get more pieces to try different looks of contact paper on the inside of the wardrobe and maybe even switch them out with the seasons. The supports across the back of the cabinet make it plenty sturdy, so this is purely aesthetic. The foam board just slides into place and fits snugly, so I don't have to tape or glue it. And when it's time to switch it out in the future, I can just push in from the back to dislodge it. Once I settle on what kind of contact paper to use, I'll cover the bottom and sides too, so the gaps where the shelves used to be will no longer be visible. After everything is done, I spent less than $10 to refurbish this cabinet into a nice storage solution for my doll clothing, and it didn't really take that much work. Now that I'm looking at it, I'm thinking about making a printout of a scene from Narnia to put in the back, just for fun. It seems like a good choice for a wardrobe. Even though it's a very simple design, since I didn't change the base cabinet much at all, I think it works well for a sort of rustic, somewhat medieval fantasy piece, and it's a great size for my dolls too. The only problem is I forgot to make hangers, so I can't actually put any of the doll clothes away just yet. Guess that's a project for another time, right? And that's all for today though. Thanks for watching. Bye.